Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm your host, Cheryl Hentz. We've got two segments in tonight's show. The first segment, we will be talking about a multifamily development that is going to be starting sometime in the next year or so over by Lake Butte. And so we're going to be talking about that with two very concerned citizens. And then in the second half of the show, or the second segment, we'll be talking with Molly Yatso Boots, I believe. I may have just slaughtered her last name, but we'll correct it when she actually comes on. She'll be in the second segment. She's the executive director of the day-by-day warming shelter, and we'll be talking about homelessness here in the city. So housing issues on both sides of the break, but very different housing issues. So anyway, welcoming tonight, we have to my right, Kathy Brewer. And you are a concerned citizen, and you've kind of been spokesman for the group, sort of. And then to her right, we have Cheryl Borchardt. And do you live in the area where this is being proposed? Okay. And do you also?
Yes, I live in Shore Preserve. Okay,
so you're both neighbors, and that's why you're so worked up about this development. So I guess, first of all, how did you, Kathy, come to kind of be the organizer of this?
That's a really good question. I had heard about it after the Plan Commission had made their decision to allow this building to go through. Some of my neighbors had contacted our neighborhood and were expressing concerns because it was the first time I'd ever heard about it. I got a bunch of people together and I contacted some others in the area, in Cheryl's neighborhood, and we just got together and we started talking about the situation itself. Mm-hmm. I am a director in my full-time job, so as a director I have a tendency to basically direct and manage projects, manage issues like this. So that's how I became the unofficial spokesperson, I would say, pushing it forward for the group.
Sure. And Cheryl, you came to be involved simply because you're a neighbor, you're concerned about this, I'm assuming you don't want the development going in there.
Well, it's not that we're anti-development in that area. I would have no problem with something that was a little more conscious of the area and the wildlife and everything that there is in that area. To me, it's a very sensitive area, and this is just. If they're talking housing needs, I think single-family homes would be a beautiful thing to put in that area.
Okay. Well, let's, first of all, the development is off of Riff Road in Oshkosh along Lake Butte Drive. It's a whopper of a development.
It's a whopper of a
development. This is what has been approved by the Oshkosh Common Council, and correct me if I'm wrong on this. It's 5 4-story buildings. Actually, they are now 5 stories, right?
No, so the project itself is 522 units.
Right.
The first phase is 2 4-story units, and then there's additional phases. All of the buildings are going to be 4-story with the exception of townhouses. So they're going to have
So we got 5 4-story 82-unit apartment buildings. We have 2 4-story 40-unit apartment buildings, 8 2-story with 4 townhomes in each.
Correct.
And that totals 522 units. And then with that, there's going to be a clubhouse and parking, some of which is going to be, that stands to reason. And part of the parking is going to be underground, but only part of it. So this is going to be a whopper of a development.
10 years.
Yeah, 8 to 10 years is what Red Earth LLC, the developer, is projecting it's going to take to build this. I did a little research on this before we started this tonight. It is, I have to say, as far as apartments that are going up, multi-family units, their rent seems to be more reasonable than a lot of the other developments I've seen. They're going to have a studio apartment for approximately $700 a month.
No, they're not, actually.
Well, that's what I read. Now,
It's changed.
what is it?
So if you look at what they submitted with their TIF request, and keep in mind that the buildings at 2 years ago might have been $700 a unit for a studio. A 2-bedroom is going to be about $2,100 by the time that they're done with it.
Okay. Well, so there's a lot of misinformation that is out there because I just pulled this like 2 hours ago. So I guess I'm at a loss to understand where some of these companies are coming up with these rents, because at some point it's not affordable.
Well, these are considered luxury apartments. That is the zone that they're hitting. Is they're going to be high-end luxury apartments.
Yeah. And they're targeting someone with a median income of $75,000.
And up.
Yes. So we don't have that kind of median income.
Correct.
The most recent data that I found was from the 2016 to 2020 Census Bureau information, and at that time the median income for a family was $70,534. A single male, and don't even get me started on the disparity between a single male and a single female, because that's going to get me all worked up. Single male median income is $47,470, and a female is $37,319, so $10,000 less. That needs to be changed, but that's another whole show.
Well, the thing about the lack of communication and, the difficulty in finding things out about this project has been from the very beginning. So the only way any of us found out that this project was even happening was that the city was doing construction to run utilities to that area. And we all, living there and driving by every day, thought, what is going on over there? We don't even know what's going on over there. So we started looking into it and found out that they were running utilities to that area. And we said, why? There's nothing over there. Well, here it turns out that it's because of this project, that they had been in plans for 2 years before we even found out about it, only because we saw the construction.
Yeah. So recently, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Cheryl, but I know that, Kathy, you're aware of it because I made you aware of it. The city manager, Oshkosh City Manager Mark Roloff, was on my show probably a month or so ago. And I specifically asked him about the notification process. And he said that they followed the same notification process for people out there that they do anywhere in the city. It's, I forget what he said, but it's within a certain number of feet.
Right. And they did. And I think what you have to do is you have to look at the area that the development is going to go up in. This is a primarily rural area. So if you're only noticing, according to the city regulations, people who live within 100 feet, you're not going to get anybody when you're talking about a rural area. There is, the concern about this is there is native wildlife, there's migrating birds, there's spawning fish, there's all of this nature that's out there. We continue to lose these native areas with all of these massive development projects.
Yeah.
This area along the Wyowash Trail is the only area where you can walk that trail in the whole this whole southern area, where you can walk that trail and enjoy the Lake Butte from the trail, where people are fishing along bridges. That will no longer happen when this development goes up.
You know,
And I actually beg to differ with what Mark Roloff said, because they didn't notify until after we went to them and said it had already gone through the planning committee, right? And it was on its way to the city council. We showed up at the city council, right? Well, we went to the planning committee with very short notice. Was it like a week or 2 weeks?
Yeah, so they did notify a small segment before the Plan Commission meeting. What they didn't do, and what has been noted by Common Council members, that they should have notified a larger area of neighbors to have a neighborhood meeting to discuss the concerns. They had the neighborhood meeting one day before the Common Council was voting on this.
After the planning committee, but before the Common Council, because they canceled the Common Council meeting because so many of us showed up saying, you know, WTF, right? And then they canceled that meeting, had a public meeting, and then had the Common Council meeting. So it was, Michael Ford even, he stated at the Common Council meeting that they had, where they overturned the amendment, that they made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, and we should explain also that, you know, it was approved one way originally and then it was changed. That, I don't know, would those changes, it got changed again and it went back to the original proposed size and structure, if you will. But the first change that they did, where it wasn't as tall, would that have made any difference in how you neighbors feel about this?
It would have been. It was a reasonable compromise, and the reason that it was brought to the Common Council at that time is because they understood the impact that it would have on that area. This is, if you drive along Highway 45, and I've driven all the way up to De Pere, all the way along Highway 10, there is nothing, no residential building of this size anywhere in the entire Fox Cities, all the way up to De Pere.
Yeah. And I don't know why they're picking this particular area. They own 72 and a half acres out there. Only 20 acres of that is buildable because of wetlands and so forth, correct?
Correct.
Correct. But they can use the whole 72 acres to accommodate the coverage percentage. So
what does that mean?
So that means if you have 1 acre of land, okay, you can only cover 30% of it, right? So if they have that 20 acres and they were just going by that 20 acres, they would only be able to cover 30% of it. But if they have 72 acres, then they can cover more of the 20% because it's a part of the larger portion.
Okay, gotcha. All right. You know, we talk about wildlife and so forth. Obviously, I would think the DNR is involved in this in some shape, form, or fashion. Don't they have to be approached, and don't they have to give certain approvals to developments like this?
They gave, I don't know if it was stormwater permits, but they had been contacted, and DNR approval for a commercial building is entirely different than what you're going to get when you're a resident. And Cheryl lives along the Sunset Point. If you live in an area that's very sensitive, where you're near the water, there are so many restrictions about what you can and cannot do.
Oh yeah, my father-in-law,
Yes, there are.
when he was alive and owned property along a lake, it was just a channel of a lake, but he couldn't even mow part of his lawn in the backyard. So are you saying then that they're much more lenient with commercial developments?
I think they are. If you look at all of the areas where commercial development has been built along the water, downtown area, there is a lot more leniency when you're building near water. Now, granted, they're going to look at certain things, but I don't believe that they've looked at the fact that there are spawning fish in that creek right off of Lake Butte. They indicated that the building cannot go to the wetlands, but they're going right up to the wetlands.
Yes, they are.
And underground parking, I think about the building and the digging that has to happen for underground parking. This is a really wet area. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to sustain this size of buildings when you're dealing with a very wet area. If you're there in the spring, it's constantly wet. There's water sitting for months.
Well, I would think that the DNR would have some issues with that as well, even just from a safety standpoint. I mean, if you've got wet land, and I don't mean wetland, I mean wet land that's marshy or whatever, very soft land, I see your point about how is something, especially this tall and this size, how is it going to manage to stay upright and sustainable over the long haul? You know, is it?
Well, they're bringing in 4 feet of fill.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
building
but
it
still,
up.
you know, I mean, I live in the city. I live in an area that has been developed for years, and even my own yard settles
Oh,
over time.
absolutely.
So they can bring in all the fill they want, but you know,
Well, I'm
It's
really worried
just-
about how all of the, I know that they have holding ponds and they have implemented into their plan, but there is going to be a ton of water runoff coming off of anything that you're covering in concrete and putting
Yeah,
buildings
impervious
with a
surface.
roof over
Yep.
it. All that has to shut off somewhere. And right now, it's just open land, so that's going to be a change, right?
Yep.
And so they have their holding ponds that they put in, but their holding ponds, if they overflow, and it's going to overflow right into that little river that runs right there, right?
So are you saying then that that the runoff from the impervious surface, that's supposed to be running off into
Holding
these
ponds.
holding ponds? Are they detention ponds or retention ponds?
Retention
They're
ponds.
They're
Retention
retention
ponds.
ponds. Okay.
Yeah.
How many of them are there? Do you know?
7.
Okay.
There's
I
quite
think.
a few.
I think there's 7. And I know at one of the meetings we were at, they said that if they overflow, they'll overflow into the wetland, into the water area. And that river that runs there, I know when they were doing the construction for the utilities to go out there, it was pretty early spring. There was still some ice on the lake. And I looked out. We had I looked out and there was it was just mud. The whole lake was just mud coming from that area where the river comes in by the Weowash Trail.
Yeah.
And I had never seen anything like that in the 20 years that I lived there. Had never seen a thing like it. As a matter of fact, I called the DNR and they came out and looked at it. And they just, well, we can't say for sure that it's from their construction because that river goes pretty far up and there's a lot of farmland, and farmland sometimes causes runoff, whatever. But I've lived there for 20 years. I've never seen anything like that. Even when we had the floods in Oshkosh where there were people literally rowing boats on the
Yes.
side of Highway 41.
Yeah. Are you
Okay.
talking about the 500-year storm that we
Yes.
had like maybe 12, 13 years ago?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. Okay.
Yeah, that was a bad
I
one.
never saw anything like that on that didn't cause even that kind of problem on our lake. Only when they were digging and putting those utilities in did I see that mud flowing out of there. It was so muddy that the ice in front of my property was the color of my shirt.
Well, so sadly, our time is running out, but this is approved now.
Yes.
Phase 1 is approved.
Phase 1 is
but
approved.
the whole project has been approved.
The GDP has been approved, but each phase has to go before the
Correct.
Plan Commission and the Common Council.
Okay. Well, see, that to me doesn't even make any sense. If they've approved the whole plan, then why does each phase have to keep going back?
That's a really good question. I think if you look at what they did, and I believe because they have so many base standard modifications that they're doing to make this project work, that's why each phase is
That's a
going
big
in back in
concern, too.
front of the Plan Commission and the Common Council. There are certain things that they have to show to the Plan Commission for each phase.
Okay, well, I think that's a good thing,
Right.
especially from your perspectives. What would you say to the people out there who say, these are just a bunch of NIMBYs, not in my backyard, for those who don't know what that acronym stands for. But what would you say to folks who say,
This, for me, has never been a not in my backyard. We know that there's going to be development no matter where we go. That's just the nature of growing, and growth is a really good thing.
Yeah.
What we've been trying to emphasize the entire time is it needs to be reasonable for the area. This large, massive apartment complex in a rural area on the outskirts of town, right along a highway, if you think about the height of this is going to be a distraction. If they had townhouses, just like they have at along Witzel, the WIT, right?
Yeah.
townhouses, 2 stories, that whole area would be a wonderful addition to the city of Oshkosh. It would cover some of what they are saying they need for housing. Now, unfortunately, housing that is going to go in this area is going to be above the cost, and I know you're going to be talking with the director of the warming shelter after this. There is a huge problem for affordable housing here. But the city continues to approve these massive projects that are not affordable for the people that need it the most.
I just heard of one person today. I don't know this person, but I heard of this individual who signed a contract, a year-long lease with one of these developments here in town, and he's paying over $2,000 a month in rent. And even though he's got a roommate, that still is not affordable. And
It's not.
He said, I wish I had not signed a lease. And we're going to start seeing more and more of that, I fear. So with just very little time left, how is the developer, how is Red Earth to work with? Do you feel that they're trying to be good neighbors, or do they
I don't actually. In fact, after the last Plan Commission meeting where the Plan Commission had approved the amendment to go back to Common Council, my husband was talking with Jake Buswell, and he said, do you realize
He's with the developer.
He's with the developer. Do you realize that this is going to affect native wildlife? Do you realize that you're going to be pushing these migrating birds out there, out? Does it matter to you? He goes, no, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, these developers, far too many of them, he's like everybody else who's a big-time developer. They don't care about wildlife. They don't care about nature. All they care about is their pocketbook, and that's it. So, well, we're going to have you guys back when we've got more time and as this develops, because this is going to be a long, drawn-out thing. So I thank you guys.
It's going to be a long, drawn-out thing, but when the Common Council approved it at this last, where they reversed the amendment, the statement made was, we have an urgent, immediate housing need.
Well,
how is 10 years an urgent, immediate
even
housing
8 years,
need? 8 years.
And they need 1,700 more units to accommodate the increase in population that's coming to the city. All right, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. We're going to take a short break, and on the other side of the break, we'll be talking with the executive director from the day-by-day warming shelter. Sit tight. We'll be right back.
Roll over. Chance high five. All right.
When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique.
And your mother and... I am totally a hot person. Right, guys? Thanks for being honest.
They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. Let 211 be your guiding light for help with food, healthcare, and other resources.
211, how can I help you?
Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211, get connected, get help.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second segment here of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm very happy to be joined now by Molly Yatso-Butz. She's the executive director of the day-by-day warming shelter here in Oshkosh. Lots to talk about because
We're not a warming shelter anymore.
You are considered what?
A shelter.
Day-by-day
Shelter.
Okay.
Because
Excellent.
a warming shelter would only be open for the cold months out of the year.
Okay, that's great. So that's one of the questions that I had for you. So is this your 13th season?
13th season.
Okay, all right. It almost seems hard to believe that it's been that long.
Yes.
The time has just flown by. Now, we're taping this on January 18th of 2024.
Well, it's our 13th year. It was established in May of 2011.
Right.
So it will be 13 years old in May.
You're starting your 13th year, your 13th season, if you will.
No, we're finishing up our what would have been 12. So I want to make sure that's right.
All right. Well, so
yes,
you'll
it's a
be
long
starting
time.
In a few months.
Yes.
Either way,
Well, we don't even close anymore, which is also very different.
Okay. Well,
so
let's.
now, we can talk about all of that.
We're on January 18th here. It's been bitterly cold for several days now, following a 2-day blizzard, basically.
Yes.
We've had sub-zero temperatures. You can now, in your new building, and we've got a bunch of photos that we're going to show of your new facility, but you can accommodate 50 people?
Correct.
Okay. And so I'm quite certain that you've probably still had to turn people away during this really bad cold spell, haven't you?
Well, we didn't.
You
Because,
didn't? Wow.
No, because the way we set up the building is that we run a 50-bed, 365-day year-round shelter. But we have protocols and procedures in place that when weather goes in either direction, so because again, we're no longer warming, but we're rather that year-round shelter, we could have tornadoes, hot, just anything that runs in Wisconsin, right? And so we are set up for a 15-bed emergency plan, and that is all based on weather. So there's protocols like once the temp, the degrees hit -20 with wind chill, you open up those emergency beds. If there's a tornado or an whatever, we open up those emergency beds. So actually, we did not fill.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Very.
And that's encouraging, I think, too. Because as, so many people started losing their jobs during COVID, which is hard for me to even fathom that in 2 months we're going to be hitting that 4-year mark, that we're entering our 4th year. And COVID is still a thing. It's still with us, not in the form that it was, but people lost their jobs and people lost their homes, and it affected a lot of people in not so positive ways.
Correct. We know that homelessness has tripled in Winnebago County since the pandemic. So now I'll retract in saying that we do fill 50 beds every single night. There has not been a night since we opened, maybe in the first week or two, that we haven't been full. But in that emergency plan this past week, we saw anywhere between, we filled 50 to 59 beds in that state of emergency from Friday to Wednesday.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Well, let's take a look at the pictures, and then we can kind of, talk about each picture a little bit. So what are we seeing here?
So this is our main living space for the guests. So again, just some of the things that I see when I look at this that I'm super excited about and happy to share with people are those clean sight lines, that open space, opportunity for, again, 50 people, right? The space to house 50 or to sleep 50 people every single night. But the beds. So the beds were, actually we did all of our furniture ordering, and we did everything in the building is local, which is fantastic. But we ordered all of our furniture from Rhyme, and they actually found these beds in Berlin, and they are amazing. And I will say that when I talk to people, they will say the bed is their favorite part.
What is it about them, Molly, that makes them so great?
Personal space. When you're standing in, but it's very dormitory-like. So it's, I just brought my daughter back to college, and I would say she has about that same amount of space in between her and her.
Oh, wait, let's go back. Can we go back, guys?
Yeah, there's some more of the beds.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
So you would be surprised. It's very spacious in between the beds.
Yeah, that you can see
Yep.
for sure.
So they're off the ground, which is very nice.
right.
We had mattresses on the floor in the old building, which made it very difficult for people to get on and off the floor.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next picture
Sure.
then. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
So this is a picture from inside the kitchen, and then you're looking out into the dining room.
Okay.
So there's a dining room, and then also behind the dining room is like a living room space. So we do, like tomorrow night, we'll have a Packer viewing party, right? And all of those things. And then there's our desktop computers behind there for our guests to work on at any time, bookshelves that are full of books, games, puzzles, to keep people busy.
All right, next photo, please.
So there's the dining room.
Okay.
Again, yep. And then right to your right is actually a smoking patio. This is an indoor-outdoor space. It was very tricky to design, but it has benefited us tremendously. We used to have to walk down to a corner, and we would have to have staff go outside. So like on a night like the last 5, we would have to bundle staff up, and we would have to walk to a corner so that our guests would be able to smoke. This is attached to our building. It's safe and secured. We can see everybody on it through our camera systems. We open up the door at 7, 8, and 9 o'clock. They all go out, and then they all come in together. And so that has saved us a lot of staff time. And
Next. Here
again, the
more
beds.
I
Look,
mean, they've got little shelves there.
They do, and
That's
then
cool.
and then all their personal storage is underneath the beds as well.
Okay, next.
Laundry. So we do about 1,200 loads of laundry a day. So we only do everybody's.
1,200. Wow.
I'm not a day. I'm sorry, a month.
Oh, I was going to say,
month.
my God, what are you people doing over there?
No, I'm sorry. A month.
So 1,200 a month.
You guys both looked at me like, oh my gosh, 1,200 a month. Alliance Laundry gifted us with all of these washers and dryers. They are used, pretty much for 1,200 loads a month. They're used pretty much 24/7. They go. And we do all personal.
Does staff run
Staff
these?
and volunteers. Yep.
Okay, all right.
Guests don't come back in the laundry room, but
all right.
And then we do all personal laundry and bedding.
Okay, all right, next.
That's
more
another,
of the same, just a different angle, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay, next. There we go, a close-up.
Yep.
Good old Speed Queen.
One
That's
thing
a
I will say
reliable
is
machine.
that for those who are in the old shelter, the laundry room was just a not very pleasant area. It was very old and dingy, and it was kind of hidden in this back basement area. And when volunteers would come and work at the shelter, it was just never anybody's favorite place to be.
Yeah.
Now we have what's called a bedding brigade. And so from 9 to noon, most days of the week, we have volunteers who actually come and love to spend time in our laundry room because of obviously the newness of the units, the space, and the windows. So we've actually had 120 new volunteers since we've opened up the shelter.
Wow, well, that's excellent.
Because it's just a nicer place to spend your time.
All right, next photo, please.
Showers. So in the old shelter, we only had 2 kind of makeshift showers that were very difficult for our guests to get into.
That looks like zero entry.
Yep, it's zero entry.
Okay.
We have 7 of these, and this whole building plus all of the bathrooms, are ADA compliant now. We have multiple people with walkers in the shelter at any given time. So this has just been a fantastic, new benefit to this shelter.
Okay, next.
This is that lounge area. Like I said, a lot of people, we watch movies, Christmas shows, Packer parties. All of that happens in that area.
Okay, next.
Again, those laptops.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And guests would utilize that for
job searching,
putting together resumes.
Writing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
So our conference room, we had no place to hold meetings or groups or anything like that. So this conference room is used for private meetings, meetings with case management teams, care management teams, We just use this room all the time.
Sure.
It's
Okay. All right, next.
stored all of the Christmas gifts.
Is that your facility dog?
We have a facility dog named Phoenix. So this was
Phoenix.
a big addition to the shelter when we opened last May. He was a gift by a grant from the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. His owner was not his owner, but his donor was supposed to meet him and passed away 4 days prior.
Oh, no.
But the donor's son came to meet Phoenix with his wife, and that was a really lovely visit. And he is awesome. He is a really awesome dog. He was trained through Journey Together. He was trained at the prison for 2 years. And then our program director, Denise, is his handler. And so he goes home and comes back to work with Denise every day.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that is he a boxer? What is
Yes.
he? Okay. I was gonna
85 pounds.
85-pound boxer. What a great face. Boxers, people think of boxers as, mean dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Violent
No.
dogs. Boxers are such great dogs. They're wonderful family dogs. They're outstanding. But that face of his, he just, he looks like he's a sly little guy.
Our guests absolutely love him.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
absolutely
My
love
gosh.
him. So it's been
So
really fun.
he just kind of roams around.
He roams around, during the day with us. And then last night, at night when the guests are eating, we do put him away because he loves food and they love to share. And that's not always safe. So, but yeah, he's like the dog that everybody waits for when they get, or looks for when they get home. It's exactly the same way at the shelter.
Well, and Journey Together and the whole prison program that Journey Together is involved in, they just do an outstanding job. So how old is Phoenix?
He just turned 3 in December.
Turned 3, okay.
And we have a Phoenix fund. I do get questions on, both sides, like, oh, is my money, I want my money to go to the shelter. I don't want it to go to the dog. That's fine, because we put your money then into shelter operations or programs. And then we have a Phoenix fund.
All right.
So we actually have people who are involved in the Phoenix Club, and it's $100 a year. And we just ask people to support the Phoenix Club, and they just give $100 a year, and that goes for his food, his vet appointments, all of that kind of stuff. So
That's
the Phoenix
wonderful.
Club is a separate line item in the day-by-day budget, but you can certainly donate to it or not to it. So
Is there a special, if someone goes to your website, Molly, is there a separate section
for Phoenix,
for him, or
no,
do you
can
just
put it in the
specify?
notes though.
Like in the comments section?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. What a great dog. All right, next.
Next time we'll have him come.
Oh, I'd love that. Okay, and that's the end of the pictures. It just looks like such a beautiful facility, especially compared to what you had.
Yeah.
And, here again, it's not a slam on St. Peter's
Oh, absolutely
or
not.
anything.
No.
They were very generous with their space for all those years. But, when you reach a certain time period in your
Yes.
growth,
Yes.
or a certain juncture in your growth, you have to do something.
Right.
And they did not have the facility there, or they just didn't have the setup that you guys needed.
Well, and I remind people that it was only, it was a temporary space, right? That was on a temporary use permit for 6 months that lasted 12 years.
Yeah.
So it was never meant to be there that long.
Yeah.
And, this project was, turned down multiple times. So we're happy to be in our new location. In fact, we had just a quick kind of conversation about it today in the staff offices. I'm like, can you guys imagine having to, and staff was like, no, I mean, we fill the spaces, we need the space. I mean, again, housing as many people as we do each night and things like that we just need the space that we have. We have other areas that weren't shown on the photos, but we have a quiet room, which was kind of come up with, it was literally come up with in the middle of the night when in one of my first seasons at the shelter, and it's just a place for people to de-escalate. And one of the things that people have asked me is, well, how many police calls do you now have per month? A year ago at this time, we were averaging 29 to 30 police calls per month. We right now average 1 to 3.
Wow,
And
that's fantastic.
And I honestly think it has to do really with just space for people to decompress. Again, those beds make a huge difference when you just have space and really a place to call your own, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can, bring a blanket. They have stuffed animals. I mean, if you come walking through the shelter right now, the beds really share personality. They do have to, they're required to make their beds and stuff every day, but, some of them have pictures of their children by their beds. Some of them have stuffed animals, things like that.
So is it the same people then? Day after day after
correct.
day?
So a warming shelter runs on that lottery system. So a warming shelter, because you're only open for a few months out of the year, you really can't get into case management and really dive into people's issues and try to help them. When we turned over to that year-round shelter, we went and visited probably 7 to 10 shelters that ran year-round, and then we followed best practice, which is what you call waitlist models. So this is what Fond du Lac uses, this is what Appleton uses, and when people present themselves homeless, you take all their information. If you don't have a bed, like somebody came today at 4 o'clock and rang the doorbell, and I said, you can meet with staff. So they'll meet with staff, we'll gather information, but we don't have a bed for you tonight. But the great part of that is that it doesn't leave all of those people stranded at 6:45. By the time we got through everybody and drew the numbers and then decided what we were going to do with 15 people who were standing out there who had nowhere to go, and then try to get them food and try to get them sleeping bags. It was so hard to continue to manage that. And they had no buses running at that point, nowhere to go. So now we don't have anybody standing outside who doesn't have a place to go.
So if you're filled to capacity, like in that one situation where you didn't have a bed for that individual, where do they go? What do you do with them?
We just suggest like he said he had somebody that he could go to, so he asked me how to get to that location, and I told him. And then as we move people out of the shelter, or they choose to leave the shelter, because they have other accommodations or whatever, then we fill those beds. So again, there's never a night. And in fact, last night, 2 extra people ended up there, so we just took out 2 extra beds. I mean, we tried not, just because it is so full and that is our capacity, but we certainly do our best to accommodate. But the lovely thing is that like tomorrow at noon, everyone who is being served by day, or at least in our system, right, on our wait list, whatever, everyone knows where they're sleeping tomorrow night. There's no more guessing game. And to constantly turn people away was the worst part of the job. And when you have nowhere for them to go, and so people find accommodations.
You guys have a lot of programming that you do there. I know part of it is helping people, prepare resumes, prep their interviewing skills for jobs and help them with job searches. What other kinds of programming do you offer to your guests?
And can I just say, part of this that we're doing is that there's continuity in our programming too, because we know who's staying in those beds every night. So now we know, like we put notes on their bed, like don't forget to come to such and such class tomorrow, or your appointment is whatever time tomorrow. So that continuity. So since so we started that July 1 of last year, and through the end of last year, we had already housed 18 people.
Wow.
So we could see the benefits of knowing who was going to be in those beds each night. So then going into our other programming, all day, Monday through Friday, we have programs going on. So it's counseling, it's group counseling, it's individual counseling, it's classes. Like this afternoon, on Thursday afternoons, we have some soft skill type classes. So today they did some Valentine projects, things like that. So those have been really fun. to incorporate, but we do Rent Smart, we do Goodwill, we do FSET, and now we have that space to have all of those people in one area. So most times when those classes are going on, we have all 50 people in the room. I know.
That is fantastic. Now, we've got, some transitional housing in Oshkosh now. It's North Oshkosh, and I think the name is Tiny Village. I think that's,
the tiny homes?
Yeah. Isn't it called Tiny Village?
It's the Tiny Homes Village,
Okay, Tiny Homes Village. And so have you had any folks, because it's meant as transitional housing for people who have been homeless, who are now employed and can move on to something a little bit more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. It's not going to be politically correct no matter how I say it, but they're getting back into a normal sense of living. They're paying rent, so on and so forth. How many folks have you had go from the shelter into the Tiny Homes Village?
So we don't have a lot of people go to tiny homes
you
because
don't?
we
Okay.
serve adults, single adults 18 and over.
Okay.
And Tiny Homes Villages really focuses on families.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Even though it's a tiny home?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So their referrals mostly come from the Oshkosh Area School District a lot of times.
Oh.
So we rarely direct people. A lot of people will call us and ask us and say, I'm a single mother with 3 children. What would you recommend that? But a lot of our referrals go to COTS. So COTS is that single men and women, single men actually in Oshkosh.
Over at Father Carr's place to be.
Yep, and COTS is now run by John Neiman, and I think we've referred six, and we have another lady moving out, and her husband next week out of shelter. So we refer to COTS much more frequently.
Okay.
And same concept though, when they get there, it's most of our people who are employed. They pay rent, they do all those things, and it's that transitional living for about 2 years. They can stay there. So yeah, that's a very great referral source for us.
When COVID hit in 2020, I think most places put in place some kind of protocol. They needed to. And I know that many places still kind of carry that protocol forward, or those protocols forward today, if someone feels like maybe they have COVID or they've tested positive, so on and so forth. Did you guys, do you have any protocols that are still kind of held over from COVID?
Well, we're a communal living space and a communal sleeping space. So we really couldn't require people to sleep in masks, things like that, So, the winter cold season is definitely, here and whatever, but, we don't have an option for people if if they don't feel well, they can go to the hospitals and, stay there if the hospital will keep them. But, unfortunately, we really don't have an alternative site for people who don't feel well.
Sure. So masks aren't required if someone doesn't feel well.
They certainly are. If you went there tonight, you would see some people wearing them
because they feel safer.
They are ill, so they're choosing to put them on. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I want to talk about the facility because you had to undertake a capital campaign for it. How much did the building cost? And how much did you raise?
$3.5 million was the construction cost.
Okay.
And we did receive that from the neighborhood improvement grant through the county and the state of Wisconsin, U.S. Department of Treasury, that grant that 5 other agencies in Oshkosh received as well. So we were 3.5 out of the 10.5 million that Oshkosh received. Then we raised an additional $2 million to support things like the beds that you just saw, all the furniture, all the office equipment, all the safety and security cameras and things like that. we had to purchase the televisions, and all of that stuff was used for that additional money.
Sure. Well, that's great. So,
Snow blowers, we had to purchase a lawnmower, things that we didn't have to have at the other building.
Yeah. And snow removal equipment for the winter.
Yep. Yep.
I'm sure it got a workout in the last week.
Yeah.
So basically then the building, you own it free and clear?
Yeah, we have no more loans on the building, that's correct.
That's fantastic, especially considering this all happened in a relatively short period of time.
Yes.
I mean, I know you were outgrowing the other place, and so that was a long time in coming. But from the day that you guys first had, the conversations and the artist renderings were put together, or the architect renderings were put together, to when you broke ground and then finally had your grand opening, it really was a short period of time.
It was a very short period of time.
How many months are we talking about
So we
here?
broke ground at the end of June of 2022. We started the campaign called Building Hope in August of 2022, and we moved in on May of 2023.
Yeah, that's, that's just 1 month shy of a year.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That's fantastic, and to own it outright, that is wonderful.
So at this point, when we raised money, which of course, our operating budget did double because we're open double the amount of days per year, plus we now serve double the amount of people. So at this point, yes, when we raise money, it goes directly into supporting what we do day to day.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of your needs. You just sort of alluded to them. How large of a staff do you have right now?
We have about 23 on staff. And we also, one of my favorite things that we've done since opening this new shelter is we actually hire our own guests now. So that's part of programming. So we allow people to interview. We have 4 jobs available, part-time jobs. They're each 10 hours a week for $10 an hour. And they interview with our team. They have to turn in a resume, do a job application. Everything as if they were going to go outside the walls of day by day, but they're staying right inside the walls of day by day, and we give them that job experience. So they get to report to us, where they're supervised by us. So those jobs include all of our janitorial, all of our donation organization, bathroom and cleaning, and dining room and kitchen cleaning, laundry. They help support all the laundry. And then one of the guys who works with us just had the best idea, because we have so many donations that come in each day, right? And so last night I saw him and he was making a list, and I was like, what's your list for? And he said, well, I'm getting everybody's needs, like getting their need list. And I was like, oh, well, what are you going to do with that? And he's like, you'll see tomorrow. So he goes to everybody's beds and says, what do you need? And they say a deodorant, a toothbrush, a new sweatshirt, whatever. And then today, during the day, sure enough, he had that list, and then he put everything on everyone's bed. Because
and where did he find these items?
In the back donation room.
So
and
he's
organizing it. He's organizing the storage room for us. So he loves it because nobody's messing with his space.
That's wonderful.
Isn't that an awesome idea? So there's that lived experience, right? It's somebody who lives in the shelter who's like, this is kind of a pain, in the butt to have to ask you guys, for a new toothbrush or new deodorant, and then watch you guys run around and you're trying to help 50 other people, and I don't want to bother you or whatever. And then we walked into the bathrooms, and he has like a little, bathroom kit set up. But he's like, these are just things that we need each night. That is always very, you guys, it's challenging to ask for because you guys are all so busy. And again, that lived experience is something
Yeah.
that's just so valuable, and what an awesome idea, right?
Well, yeah, and he could even save time by not going from person to person. You could just put up a box, a needs box, right?
Right.
And
Well-
he can just go in there and pull out, okay, so-and-so needs such and such. And, but what,
Yeah.
thinking outside the box.
Yes,
See,
yes, they're
he's
so
going to make
creative.
someone a very good employee
Yes.
when he gets out
Yes,
of the
so
shelter.
so creative. So we're just so happy. So we have actually right now we have 5 individuals that are employed by
And
us.
10 hours a week.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. And $10 an hour. That's
Yes.
not bad money. I mean, it's not, someone like myself, it's not a living wage for me, but for them, that's
right.
good
Remember,
money.
because they're not paying
Right,
to,
yeah,
for room
it's-
and
so it's
board right
good
now.
money
So
for
we
them.
can just help them create a good
Absolutely.
savings account.
Yep. So, what are some of the needs that you guys have at the shelter when we talk about needs?
Yeah.
Obviously, financial donations are
Yes.
always needed. What
Always
else?
needed. And then we keep up our wish list on the website, and then
Okay.
generally in our newspapers. I just
Okay.
put out a new email. Our e-blast in January had some wish list items. Right now, hats, mittens, long underwear, hand warmers, those type of things are always really popular this time of year. In fact, I went to go grab somebody gloves today, and I was like, oh darn it, we're out of gloves. So all of that stuff is super popular this time of year.
Sure.
We have volunteers, like I said, that do bedding brigade. If you love laundry, you are welcome to come and do everybody else's laundry for 3 hours in the morning. We do meal teams. We still ask the community to serve meals each night if
Sure.
you are able. We're not full all the time. Those when we were only open 6 months a year, those used to fill up super.
Sure.
And we had about 4 open dates in January,
Sure.
which is not bad.
If we can put up the website address, please, I would like to see that up on the screen. There we go. And if you are listening to us on the radio, it is daybydayshelter.org.
Yeah.
Again, daybydayshelter.org. And I should also say, for folks who were listening to us on the radio, the first segment, they have a website also, and it is protectwetlands.org. I like to say that because people on the radio can't see it.
Right, right.
People can go to the website and either make a donation, and they can put in the comments section or the notes section if it's for anything at all that you guys need, or they can
food,
specify they want it to go to
Phoenix.
Phoenix, or it can go to laundry supplies,
Yes,
or
absolutely.
they can designate where they want it to go.
That's
And then
correct.
if they don't designate, you guys just put it wherever you need it, and then your wish list, if you will, is there as well.
Correct.
At this time of year too, I would think. Even something as simple as chapstick, lip
Yes,
stuff.
that's another big one this time of year.
A protectant. So, all right.
Yeah.
What else do you volunteers? I know you said that you got 120 new volunteers just since you moved into the new
So
building.
yep,
But
hospitality volunteers morning and evening are still a big need for us. So that's when you come in and just kind of help them either get settled in for the night or out for the morning.
Sure.
And then again, those meal team volunteers. The great thing about the new shelter is that we do have availability to store food now. So say you really enjoy cooking casseroles, something like a tuna casserole, something like that. But you're like, feeding 50 to 55 people every night is very expensive. We know that. We actually have a huge pantry now, and we get donations from Feeding America and the community, the
that's
food
great.
pantry. And so we have all of that available. It's actually
Okay.
in stock. So you
All
can
right.
come by the shelter, grab 30 cans of tuna and 40 boxes of mac and cheese and make the
Excellent.
casserole at your house, and it
All
doesn't
right.
have to cost you anything.
excellent. Well, very good. Well, our time is up, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been a few years since you've been on, so I want to
Yeah.
have you back a little bit more frequently. So thanks to Molly, and thanks to my guests in the first half, Cheryl and Kathy, talking about that multifamily development. Thanks to my crew, sympathies to Daryl on the loss of his father, and Most of all, I guess thanks to you for watching or listening. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.
Thank you.